What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We're going to preview the 2024 schedule for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Also, we'll give you a very early projected record. Keep in mind, this is not an official prediction, simply a projection based off of their strength of schedule and how good we expect each team to be on that schedule. So let's jump right into it. This was the schedule from last year. Remember, they played Ohio State in the they're not in a conference, obviously, but outside of ACC games, they played Ohio State. Of course, they play USC every year. You look at the schedule, they played Clemson for one of their ACC games. Didn't play Florida State, but it was a pretty difficult schedule. Louisville and Clemson both on the road made it tough. And then, of course, Ohio State, a game where they had that game won and lost it at the end. But this is the schedule for this year. You start with Texas A&M on August the 31st on the road. Huge game in the non-conference. Next week, it's Northern Illinois on September the 7th. Then it'll be a road game at Purdue on the 14th. Then they play Miami of Ohio on the 21st and Louisville on the 28th. So no bye weeks there in the first month of the season with the August game and the 4 September games. Pretty tough start. And then they'll have Stanford after a bye week on October the 12th. And then they'll play on the road at Georgia Tech October 19th. And I think that game might actually be in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, but it'll be in Atlanta, so basically a road game. They'll play Navy in New Jersey, so that'll be a neutral site game. Then you have Florida State. They do play Florida State this year on November the 9th. Then it'll be Virginia on the 16th. They play Army. So I don't think this is official, but it seems like they're going to put their final game right here. They'll play Army on the 23rd, and then they'll close things out with USC on the road on the 30th. Again, that Army game maybe is not official. I'm not sure. I just read that they were planning to, maybe it hadn't come out yet, but that both sides were working on scheduling that game for the 23rd because Notre Dame only had 11 games. And so when you look at the schedule here, they'll play Stanford. I don't know how this is going to work with Stanford now being in the ACC. Will they play them every year? There's some weird things going on here. USC going to play Notre Dame. If they play them every year, then they've got the 9 conference games in the Big Ten plus Notre Dame. So again, with the changes in college football, we've got some crazy stuff happening here. But playing Texas A&M, that's going to be a very tough game there. They have Florida State. They have them at home. So overall, you look at the schedule and say, man, there's some good teams on the schedule. But is there a game on the schedule that you would say Notre Dame can't win or even will be an underdog in? I don't know. I mean, Louisville's at home. That's one of their tougher games. You got Florida State at home, like I said. USC, how good will they be? Texas A&M on the road, that'll be a tough one, but they've got a new head coach, so how good will they be? It's going to be interesting. I think there's a big opportunity for Notre Dame to have a really, really good year this year and possibly even get into that top 12 or into that college football playoff. So let's give you a projection now, a projected record here. This is the scale that we use. If it's under 20%, over 80%, those are games where I think the spread will be 17 plus points, 20 to 29, 71 to 80 games where I think the spread will be double digits, 10 to 16 points, maybe in that range. Then you got 30 to 39, 61 to 70 games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. And then your 50-50 games in the white, those are games where I think the spread will be less than a touchdown. And it's not really about those numbers like I've said in the other videos. It's a tier system that we use and to get this formula. So let's start with the easy wins. I think you've got 4 of them: Northern Illinois, Miami of Ohio, Navy, and Army. They should be favored by 17 plus points in all 4 of these games. Really no reason to expect them to not be huge favorites, and it would be a shock. I mean, honestly, it would be a shock if they lost any of these games. I know Army's had some decent teams here recently, but still, Notre Dame should be, and especially the fact they would have already prepared for Navy. That would help them against Army. So they're in pretty good shape in those 4 games. Should be easy wins, and we do count all of those games as wins in the formula. Moving on to the next set of games. So we go to the blue games here. These are games where I think, again, Notre Dame will be favored by double digits on the road at Purdue, Stanford, and Virginia, all teams that are towards the bottom of the Power 5. Virginia, I think, has potential. They had a freshman quarterback last year who was pretty good. Virginia has potential to maybe take a step forward this year, maybe even Stanford, a second-year head coach. Purdue will be a second-year head coach. So all 3 of these teams maybe have potential to improve this year, but again, this is very early. We're doing this in February. We lean a lot towards how the teams were last year until we have time to really fully break them all down. Of course, you have to look to the future a little bit, but again, this is very conservative and it's very early and it's just a projection, but I feel like right now Notre Dame should be favored by a couple touchdowns in those 3 games. And again, by the time we get to those actual games, it might be more, it might be less. We'll see. Then we move on to games in the purple. Louisville and Georgia Tech. I think they'll be favored by about a touchdown. I know Louisville beat them last year, but this time it's at home. I don't know if Louisville will be as good as they were last year. We'll see. Georgia Tech's a team and a program that's getting better. So these are not going to be easy wins, not going to be guaranteed wins by any means. Notre Dame's going to have to fight, I think, in both of these games. But I do think they'll clearly be the favorite going into these 2 games. But if you're looking for one of those maybe upset alert type games, maybe look at these 2, especially the Georgia Tech game being played in Atlanta. So that one could be very interesting. It's again, you go back to the schedule, they don't have any like tough stretches, any back-to-backs that are going to be tough. It's really a favorable schedule for Notre Dame. And you never know, though, because we've said that in the past, or we've said the opposite. We've said, wow, this schedule looks really tough for Notre Dame, and then several of the teams wind up just not being any good. It could be opposite this year. Georgia Tech could be a top 25 team. Louisville could be good again. I talked about Purdue, Stanford, Virginia. One of those teams could emerge and be a good team this year. We'll see, but overall, it does seem to set up pretty well. And then you've got Texas A&M, Florida State, and USC. So these are the swing games. These are the games that will determine the season. If they take care of business in the other games, it'll come down to these 3 games. And if you win all of them, or let's just say even one of them, you're probably going to be in the college football playoff. I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think 10-2. I think I've looked back at the past, and 10-2 would not have always gotten a team into the college football playoff with the 12-team playoff. But it's going to give you a great chance, and more than likely you're going to get in. But not having that conference championship, not having that 13th game could potentially hurt them. So 11-1, you're guaranteed to be in the college football playoff. 10-2, I'd say there's like an 80% chance that they get in. So anyways, it comes back to these 3 games, and these are the 50-50 games. I have Notre Dame as a Tier 2 team. I have Florida State as a Tier 2 team. I have USC and Texas A&M as Tier 3 teams, but those games are on the road, and that's why they wind up as 50-50 games. I think Notre Dame probably right now would be favored in all 3 of these games, but not by a whole lot. And so that's why they do wind up here in this 50-50 range. And they're all games they can win, all games they can lose. If you average all this out and get a projection for Notre Dame, the projection is 9-3. So 9-3 for this team. So out of the games against Texas A&M, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and USC, that would be potentially going just 2-3 in those games. That's kind of hard to see them losing 3 of those games. We'll see how it plays out again, but then you've also got Purdue, Stanford, and Virginia, and again, the odds would say that you might lose one of those games. When you average all that out, you get 9-3. So they were closer to 10-2, I believe, than 8-4, but 9-3 is the projection here for Notre Dame. I think they have a chance to do better than that. I think 9-3 would be a solid season, but not more than likely not going to get you into the college football playoff. So they could be right there on the border at 10-2 or 9-3. That's kind of how I see this team right now. Again, long ways to go evaluating and breaking these teams down before we get to actual official predictions. But again, that's the projection for Notre Dame. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below.